Call Ascension Parish Council of August 17th to order. Would everyone stand and Mr. Martin McConnell please lead us in prayer. And we will have Boy Scout Troop 9 come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we thank you for the freedom that we have to gather to here together today as one people, as your people, as we work for the future and the goodness of Ascension Parish. Father, this room is filled with the future of the parish tonight, our young people, the people that we're trying to raise up in the right way. Please help us to do that. Please help us to raise these people correctly as they should be raised. And the fact that they are here tonight, Father, tells us that they have been brought up in the right way, and we can be proud of them, and we can be hopeful for the future of Ascension Parish, thanks to the young people here today. We ask you to look after our brothers and sisters in uniform, whether they be here in town or whether they be in faraway lands. If they're protecting us, if they're in uniform, if they're in any way in danger, Father, please protect them. Put your hand on their shoulders, guide them, and bring them home to their families safely and soon. We also ask you, Father, for our sister Tamika Stroud, our new member here on the council, her father, Mr. B.J. Francis, who has also devoted his life to community service, has undergone some major surgery today with a kidney transplant. We understand that things are well, and we hope that things will continue to be well. Please, Father, look after him and heal him and return him to his family. As always, we ask you for the wisdom and the guidance that we need to do the right thing, to make the brave decisions, to make the courageous decisions, to make the correct decisions. Please help us, Father. We ask these in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Troop 9, would y'all come up?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all very much. All right, Ms. Suzanne, roll call. Mr. Adrian Thompson is out, and Ms. Tamika Stroud. Mr. Thompson's working night shift tonight. All right, number 3, Chair's Edition. We do have 2 items that we need to consider putting on the agenda by 2/3. One is a change order for the courthouse work in Donaldsonville. It's a change order for rain days.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Byrick. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. We're going to put that as item 13A. 13A. Also, we had a resolution coming from the Utility Committee. They met last night, if I'm not mistaken. And they wanted to put on for the ACUD to call a special election for a millage for the ACUD board. Motion, Mr. Chairman. Got a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Shea Snyder. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. We're going to put that as 13B.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes, I do have a 2/3 agenda item also coming out of the Personnel Committee. We've been working on some of these ordinance. Mr. Babin worked on it today. Hopefully, Mr. Babin, maybe you can pass that out, or have Ms. Patterson pay.
It's been passed out.
And this is will be an introduction of an ordinance. We'd like to do that tonight. We had introduced this ordinance a couple of weeks ago, and we had to revise it, so we want to introduce that tonight also, dealing with overtime pay for exempt employees.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Ms. Fontenot. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, that is under 8B, overtime ordinance for exempt supervisory personnel. I just advised Mr. Valentine today if it's going to be an introduction, it needs to be listed on your agenda as an introduction. So it's already on your agenda as a subject matter, but not correctly as an introduction.
Okay. We're going to take it up as B1. We're just going to take it up right at B1 under Personnel Committee. All right. Number 4, presentation. Ms. Suzanne, do we have any presentations tonight? Mr. McConnell.
Mr. Chairman, thanks so much. I'm so proud of the Dixie Youth Majors baseball team. They're here with us tonight, the team and their coaches. They were the Southern Regional champs of their division, and they brought us all the way to the state. They're the state runner-ups. They gave everybody a good fight, a good run for the money, and they came that close to making the state championship. But we're just so proud of them and their achievements that we invited them here tonight to recognize them. And I would like to recognize them, if I may.
That's for Todd. That's mine.
That's yours, Todd. That's yours. Okay, you can keep your glasses. I can read. Ms. Suzanne made these real big, so I can read them. When I call the names of the coaches and the players, if y'all would come forward and stand up here, please, and then we'd like to get a photograph of you. And Ms. Suzanne, as I call the names, if you would hand them to them, please. First, we have Coach Robbie Latuso. Is Coach Latuso here? There he is. And look, if y'all were reading about this in the Ascension Citizen and the Gonzales Weekly, this was fun reading. The exploits of these kids and how well they did. Coach Timmy Babbitt. We got Coach Ralph DeLatte, Jr. And his first assistant coach there, these kids. And then we have player Mr. Logan Latuso. We have Mr. Chase Rivette. Chase used to have hair. I don't know what happened. Connor Harris. Mr. Josh Ambo. Nice to see Gay Lynn again in the audience. Mr. Brian Miller. Mr. Alex Grimion.
He's at a hunter safety class tonight.
That's a good place to be. How about Mr. Blake St. Pierre? Mr. Dylan Olivier. Mr. Slade Griffin. Mr. Jake Lejeune. Mr. Kai Wagasback. Mr. Connor Burke. And Mr. Josh Savoy. Just to tell my friends and colleagues that not all the great teams come out of Donaldsonville from this parish. We got some pretty good stuff here in Gonzales in the east side of the river. We're very proud of you fellas for your achievements, and we wish you all the success in your future endeavors. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Todd, you signed that letter saying that?
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, fellas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My pleasure, Mr. McConnell. Is there any more presentation, Mr. Zahn? That's it? All right, we'll move along to number 5, Parish President's Report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members of the council. The report's going to be a little longer than the Drainage Board Monday night. There's several issues that we need to make you aware of. We'll start off with economic development. Recall a few weeks ago we made a major announcement in conjunction with the State Office of Economic Development and the governor concerning a project called Synfuels. Today, Dr. Liu, who is the president of that corporation, was back in town meeting with myself, Ascension Economic Development Corporation, along with a representative from the State Economic Development Corporation. And since that initial press release and announcement at the Capitol, they've been in China working with the sister company over there in the process of bringing 2 engineers over who understand the technology. And their challenge, and I thought it was kind of funny, he said we're trying to find 2 engineers out of 2 billion people. So, and they will be working with local engineers, but they need people from there who are involved in this process and the technology, which is new refining technology, to help our country become less dependent on foreign oil. Is a part of what this is really about. And so that project looks like it's moving forward. There'll be another meeting in Houston next month, and then there'll be a trip. The governor's office, we're not sure who she'll invite to go between now and the end of the year, to go to Shanghai to meet with representatives there, and then they'll be making a return trip to our parish. Their borough, which is part of the city of Shanghai, will become a twin sister city or sister parish with Ascension Parish and the borough of Shanghai. Shanghai has 20 million people or so, Dr. Liu tells us, and so I said we don't quite have that many in Geisman, Dr. Liu, but we have enough to do a program. And so that's some exciting news. Looks like that is definitely moving forward and has credibility. In the area of finance, as you know, we're in the process of putting together the budget for 2007. If you haven't already turned in your needs to the finance department or one of the department heads, please do so quickly. Finance had asked to have that back in by today from the various agencies and departments of parish government. We'll be working that issue very closely and very hard in the next few weeks to get the budget to you 75 days prior to the end of the fiscal year. In the area of recreation and wastewater, we're going to kind of tie this together a little bit, utilities, recreation. Yesterday we had a meeting with the Corps, URS. The mayor of Hammond was gracious enough to show us a new project they're about fixing to kick off with wastewater. The city of Breaux Bridge has been doing it for about 50 years, some variety of this. It's actually taking the city of Hammond's wastewater and through a 7.5-mile pipeline, taking it to a state marsh wildlife area and treating it that way and discharging it into that area. So their project just about ready to start. They'll be closing down one of their treatment facilities as they institute this new process that's designed to handle about 80,000 people. They have 22,000 currently in the city of Hammond. So it's very enlightening. And the person in charge of wastewater for URS was in that meeting yesterday and took that tour and looked at those maps and so forth. Mayor Foster said they really made a trip to Los Alamos, New Mexico a couple of years ago where they saw this program work. Environmentally, it's supposed to be very friendly. The Sierra Club endorsed it in the Hammond area, and it's supposed to be less expensive in treatment of waste. And so it's something we're looking at along with the Corps and URS, our project manager. Some of you have already, I think, made the trip over there to look at their skateboard park. Hammond built one of those a few months ago, and they've already added to it the demand. And our recreation committee and our recreation office is looking at doing that in our parish. Hopefully we can put that in the budget for next year. A lot of young people now are getting into that, from what I understand. In addition, we had a meeting today with the 4 parish presidents of St. James, St. John, St. Charles, and Ascension, along with SJB Group, along with the Corps of Engineers, along with the Pontchartrain Levee District. They had their executive director there, Mr. Wilson, and their chairman there, Mr. Blaine Sheets, and they're proposing, and the Corps has been involved in these projects in several areas, that a bicycle walking path be constructed from Baton Rouge all the way to New Orleans along the top of the levee on the east bank. And so the Corps is putting up some money from the trails dollars, and I want our citizens to understand that this is money that if it doesn't go, federal dollars coming, it doesn't go to the trails program, we can't go use it to improve a road. But it's just the way it is in Washington highway dollars. The levee board is putting up 25% of the $500,000 for this master plan, and the 4 parishes will be asked to put up a little bit to help pay that difference, which I think is $65,000 divided 4 ways. And so they will be meeting with all of you, as well as the other councils from the 3 other parishes, in the regular River Parish Caucus meeting, which is the second Monday in September, and I think we may have a conflict with when you move your drainage meeting. But they're trying to make one presentation to everybody at once instead of going to 4 different councils. So Chairman Lambert, Ty, we could look at that a little bit. That meeting is being hosted by St. Charles Parish in the Norco area. It's a regular scheduled caucus meeting, and I think 2 of you are members of that caucus committee. So all of you invited to go that night to see a presentation on, I think it's about 115 miles of levee. There's 8 miles already constructed in St. Charles. There's 2.5 miles already constructed between LSU and downtown Baton Rouge. The water franchise agreement we received from Mr. Jeff Diaz yesterday, I think it was, what he and the Corps and URS and with Ascension and Parish Water have been working on. We've been working on this now for a long time, as you know. We mailed out today for Mr. Owen's consideration what the Corps is calling our final and non-negotiable offer, which at least one member of the council has been involved in this process for several months now, Ms. Fontenot. It's included in this 20-year agreement, if they accept it and if you accept it, significant improvements to our fire service in those areas that are serviced by Ascension Water, especially in the older subdivisions. And it's about 600 or 700 fire hydrants proposed in this plan where the franchise fee would be used to pay back to the construction company they use to install these hydrants. And it's the hydrants are, or the hydrants are not listed. The number of the hydrants is listed, and the proposed subdivisions are listed in this capital improvement program, which also includes some improvement to water lines that are insufficient to handle sufficient fire flow. So that was mailed this morning. Hopefully, in the next few days, we'll get a positive response from the water company, and then we can bring that to you shortly thereafter. It's just a draft, but it's the final draft according to our consultants now. What that means exactly, we'll find out. As you know, we're also in the process of, part of the budget message that I give you each year is to include salaries and so forth, and addressing some of that tonight. But we are in real need of a municipal or urban planner. Many parts of our parish now are experiencing the same challenges and have the same needs as many municipalities do. In the Prairieville area, it looks like we have about 35,000 people now, which is by far much bigger than any of our municipalities. And so, in my trip last week to NACO, I met with the American Planning Association. We're meeting with the Louisiana Planning Association, a chapter of that, which is part of NACO or associated with NACO, and enlisting their help, much like we enlisted the help of Bert Falk, our financial consultant, to help us find a CPA to start working in our finance office to really do some forward forecasting and looking ahead. I feel it's critical that we do the same thing with development and growth that's taking place in this parish, and that we have a serious discussion between now and the end of the year on what we're going to do with development and how we're going to manage growth. And I think it's absolutely essential that we hire this type of person to help in this process. It shouldn't. We're probably going to have to pay for this kind of person. We don't have a lot of our young people in the parish or state going into careers of urban planning. Many of them going into landscape architect, which I think Mr. Becknell's background is. We really, so if any of you know of anyone who is in that career and who is someone to be interested in working in our parish, it should help us save on consultant fees that we're paying now, and to get someone full-time to help us plan the parish going forward, to finalize our master plan in all the different areas. I think that is critical. We hope you agree with us on that. Now, another interesting statistic that we're going to share with you monthly, just so part of the master plan and about to propose with the impact fee, just if we would have had the impact fee in place in July, ladies and gentlemen, based on the ordinance that we're still working on and we still hope to bring up later, if it had been in place in the month of July, we have received $593,371 to match federal highway dollars to help improve roads or to buy corridors along highways for future expansion. So I thank Bill Rue and the people working in the planning department for putting that together. And each month we're going to look at that. And that's based on about 185 residential permits and 14 commercial permits, no industrial permits for the month of July. And those dates may be, may not be exactly July 1 through July 31st, depending on how they do the records. But this is something we're tracking carefully to look at. I want to thank Jeff Diaz and Bill Rue and all of our consultants from the Corps and URS for the hard work on this franchise agreement. It's been a lot of work, a lot of time. We spent a good bit of consulting dollars to help get this document as good as we can get it. Now, the thing that you had asked me to report on in the finance meeting last Thursday, and I think 2 weeks ago I missed a meeting while I was in NACO along with 2 or 3 other members of the council, was our preparedness. And I think Ms. Stroud was talking primarily about hurricanes, but obviously you have so many hazards now. And I will lead into this, and we can make this as long or as short as you want to. Of the 3 general sessions at NACO, 2 of them dealt with terrorism and flu pandemics. And what I'm about to say is not in any way trying to alarm our citizens, but to caution our citizens on what would. Anytime you have all the county officials from around the United States and all 50 states, and of 3 general sessions, 2 of those 3 deal with these kind of issues, the message I got from that is at the national level they must be given information to help us prepare, because repeatedly they said it's absolutely essential that local government be prepared for these events. Dr. Bauer, and I may have that pronounced wrong, from Israel, spoke for about 30, 40 minutes. He was the Homeland Security Director, what we call it, for the country of Israel. And if any country is aware of anti-terrorism and terrorism threats, that one is. And he spoke at length about the importance of local government being prepared. And we have a chemical plant population penetration in our parish, obviously. One of the concerns when you're talking about walking a bicycle paths along the levee that the Corps and the levee board is dealing with, working with industry, how do you do that and still secure those facilities? And so he got my attention, Dr. Barr, and we don't like to think about it. Ironically, as we got home from NACO Wednesday or Thursday of last week, the incident that happens in England with people who undoubtedly have very little or no concern for human life trying to blow up airplanes. And so this area is something, if you have questions on, those of you who didn't get to attend the conference, be happy to meet with you individually or in small groups to talk about it. Now, the next presentation there that really got my attention was by Dr. Hill, and what made it more credible to me is that Dr. Hill is from the Delta region of Mississippi and he rose to the highest level in the American Medical Association as their president last year. And he said, it's not if we have a flu pandemic, it's when. And he said, again, he's not trying to panic you, but he's trying to get local government to be prepared and not to depend on the state and federal government to bail us out with vaccines and so forth. Dr. Hill spoke very straightforward, very common sense, very practical. He's worked in the poor areas of Mississippi for a long time in his private medical practice. And he said, health care is local. And we said that 8 to 10 times probably. Health care is a local issue. And so now when we talk about the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Operations, not only are we talking about flooding, the traditional hazards that Ascension Parish has faced, now we're living in a global society where risk has increased significantly in the last few years, to where now this person has to be able to deal with terrorism matters, deal with medical matters like flu pandemics, maybe making decisions on quarantines and things. And none of us want to think about these issues, but it's the reality of the world we live in today. And we have to do all that we can. We do not have the resources to be completely prepared for the worst. We have to try to expect the best and plan for the worst based on the resources, manpower, financial resources we have in parish government to work with other parish agencies. And so our search for a new director of this office is very critical and has taken on a greater meaning in light of the recent presentations at the National Association of Counties annual conference. Now, specifically, our preparedness plan is one that obviously has dealt with the threat of a significant chemical leak in our petrochemical corridor for years now. Some of you work in that business. Obviously, we've been prepared for hurricanes and natural disasters the best we can. And in light of what happened with Katrina and Rita last year, obviously we had a heightened sense of preparedness and the need for that. We do not have complete operability in communication yet in the nation or at the state level or at the local level. It's something that's being worked on through the Office of Homeland Security, both at the state and federal and local levels. What has happened since last year? And I guess this was the crust of what some of you want to know, so you and our citizens can rest assured that we are prepared. Ms. Jocelyn Bibbs, who's been working in this office for a few years now, is acting as our assistant director as we conduct a search to replace Mr. Howard. She was there throughout the events of last year, is very familiar with the various aspects of emergency preparedness, especially in the area of natural disasters. In addition, we've added security to the Emergency Operations Center because in the past it was so open, just about anybody could walk in. And so now you have to have a card in order to get into the center itself. The boardroom or the executive room between the sheriff's office and the council chambers, this room that we're in, the room there will be used for elected officials and those who have a real need if a state of emergency is declared. And then the media will be asked to wait in this room here. We come out and we present things to the media whenever we're talking about emergency situations. And this is some of the things we learned from what happened last year with so many people in the Emergency Operations Center at times. Became a little chaotic trying to deal with making decisions. Now, in addition, through the generous contribution of mostly local industry and other agencies, this brochure is in the phone book. It's really an all hazards emergency guide. And one of the most important parts I want to emphasize to our citizens is the responsibility we have personally, for personal responsibility to prepare ourselves and our families for those disasters, either man-made or natural, that could strike in our homes and in our communities. This guide covers I can't say every conceivable potential threat, but it covers those that are most likely to occur in our area. In addition, on the parish website, there's a large segment dedicated to emergency preparedness and homeland security issues that a citizen, family, community, a government agency, or business could go to find out what they need to do. In addition, the State Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness on their website has the 3 sectors of the state. The state has now been divided into 3 sectors if evacuations are mandated. And the northern part of the state is the first sector where people will be sent to. The middle parts, and all this is outlined in this guide. If you have any specific questions, I don't want to take the time to go through every page and every aspect of this. It's pretty detailed. Obviously, the parish president is the one, according to our parish ordinance as well as the state law, that is responsible for declaring a state of emergency, and it can originate from the bottom up or from the top down, meaning the President of the United States through the Stafford Act, or the Governor of Louisiana under the Louisiana Disaster Act, or parish president under Section 8 of our Code of Ordinances can declare an emergency. Most of the time, that would be done in conjunction with the federal and state levels of government, depending on the type of disaster, the type of event. I think I've said a good bit on that. I'm not sure what specific questions. I think Ms. Strauss, the one last week, asked us to talk about this, so I'll be happy to answer any questions or try to answer any questions that members of the council have now. I understand a member of the council was involved in these meetings, and there have been a lot of meetings taking place with different government agencies and industrial agencies, Mr. Chairman, in the last few months. But I understand the council members assigned is no longer on the council who went to these meetings, so I am not sure the communication from those meetings back to the council as a whole.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chase now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
and we appreciate this is a very good brochure and very informational that we have for the general
Now,
population.
let me just say this. There may be some things in here now that are, because this was published, it went to printer several months ago before the state, and they're still refining their plan. For example, the state, I understand, has passed some kind of a law, and the governor signed it, the last legislative session, an evacuation plan for animals, and requiring air conditioning thing. We're looking at that. I have some concerns about, I love animals and things, but if they're mandating some things like that, we've got to find out the details on that, and we may have to make some decisions or recommend some proposed changes to that legislation if it's not common sense. And so we have not seen all the details of that. Ms. Bibbs is looking at that as we speak. So not only is the state mandated an evacuation plan, and let me, out of caution, abundance of caution, tell our citizens, to my knowledge, we've never had a mandatory evacuation in Ascension Parish. I just want to interject that, Kent. So this brochure, it was printed before the state finished all their stuff.
On this brochure, they have for the West Bank, and this is what myself and Ms. Stroud was basically interested in. And they have directions to get to Alexandria and north. And our question is, what do we do with the citizens that do not have the means to evacuate, that do not live in adequate shelters and adequate homes? Where do they go? What do they do? And how do we communicate this to them?
Great question.
That's basically what we've been asking for.
I met with Mayor Sullivan the other day, and I think the Red Cross has approved a shelter in that community. Now, we can take it on ourselves. Now, let me preface it. Because of our location, okay, Ascension Parish has been told by the state we're not a sheltering parish. So evacuees coming from other areas are not supposed to stop here. Now, our citizens who are in low-lying areas or in structures that may be inadequate for certain type of events, we still have the 2 schools on the East Bank, and they're listed in here. Now, this would be a shelter of last resort for local citizens. Now, if we do not issue a mandatory emergency evacuation, people will be instructed to shelter in place, or if we do a voluntary evacuation for people in low-lying areas or in housing that they may not feel comfortable in, well, then we would provide a shelter for them within the parish. Now, there's been a lot of talk the last few weeks about between our offices and the state offices, Lamar Dixon, and things we did there last year. We've had 5 or 6 agencies request to have Lamar Dixon made available to them, both on the animal side as well as the human animal side, from nursing home associations to utility companies wanting to have that as a staging area, or, for example, yesterday was in a meeting with a representative from the Louisiana Nursing Home Association, wanting to use the trademark building, even though it's only rated for 100-mile-per-hour wind. They want to use that building. They have to evacuate nursing homes from southern parts of the state to come there. And so we're looking at that. And if they want to assume that responsibility and all the risk to come there, we'll certainly look at renting it to them. Now, in addition, we could obviously, if we needed, move our citizens there. As you know, last year we tried to, the school board worked with us, and we have in place a very good relationship with the school system as well as the Council on Aging to use their buses, to use these vans. Last year the school system did this. We went to a couple places in Donaldsonville for pickups. We put it on the radio, and as you know, a lot of the communication was lost. The traffic snarls with all the people from the southern part of the states coming through Donaldsonville, what Mr. Sanju told me, he handled this last year for the school system, never really made a connection. We were going to pick those people up and bring them to the East Bank and to an approved shelter. And they made several trips with buses, and it just didn't connect. Now, one of the problems I was told, besides just the traffic, was also the communication problem. That a lot of these people just don't listen to television or radio and not aware of what we're trying to do.
It's a very simple question. We need to have a place on the West Bank that people know, recognize, know where it's at, and catch a ride very easily.
Told me he has done that. Now that's been
the schools are available, but we need to make it available, and we need to know ahead of time that if we have an event, they can go. I know whether it be Donaldsonville High School, where it would be whatever school that it would be located in, but we need to provide some shelter for people that are in need, that they don't have to come across the river.
I
that's
think
just not going to happen.
I think Mayor Sullivan said Donaldsonville High School has been approved by Red Cross, but let me verify that before we make that public.
And if
I know
not,
they looked
I
at
would
the
like
new
to see
Laura
the parish
Intermediate.
take it upon ourselves for parish residents on a limited time basis while the event is going on, can get somewhere easily, and then we, if there's a significant event and we have to do something long term, then we can do transportation to these certified Red Cross shelters. But for an event, we have a number of people that are living in shelters that are not adequate, and they need to get somewhere, and they need to be communicated to, and it's not being done yet.
What is your recommendation for a facility there?
I'm fine with Donaldsonville High School. I mean, that's...
Donald Sanju told me he's okay with
Which school is the best is not my decision. That should be between the school board and OEP.
Well,
we need to get something.
the Red Cross is the one that designates...
Mr. Chairman, this sounds like a good debate for a committee meeting, wouldn't you say?
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Valentine.
Do you have any information as far as what FEMA is going to do with the one FEMA trailer park that we have in our parish, which is in my district?
Well, first of all, Mr. Valentine, we don't have a FEMA trailer park. We have a commercial trailer park that one of your constituents
Okay,
owns.
all right. Well, do we have does FEMA have a plan for it?
The plan they're telling the state is that we're responsible. And, of course, they're responsible, personal responsibility. And if we have an emergency evacuation order, that we ought to help them find a shelter somewhere. So we do have shelters in our parish that those people could go to. It's only 50, and I don't think they're all occupied right now. So.
Right.
But yes, they could go to either Dutchtown High School or East Ascension High School.
Like the other.
When it came to that. But yeah, that issue's been debated a lot lately at the state level and with FEMA, and you may have saw recently the letter
That's
that the director wrote back and said, "Government, that's your baby."
I know.
And everybody's pushing it off on everybody else. But it's just one of those. That's why I said our plan was put out, and the state plan was not settled, and nor is it settled completely yet.
Okay.
But there's still debate on, like, nursing homes, for example.
You answered it. Okay. One other thing, one quick thing, Parish President. I understand the, I guess, statistics you want to give on the impact fee if it would have passed, but we also need to tell the citizens that we are running 22 to 32% ahead on all of our sales taxes. And you kind of implied, and maybe you didn't mean it that way, but I kind of took it that way, that we had $500,000 we had collected for a federal road project. Well, this council dedicated the excess of our budget to the Road and Bridge Fund, if I'm not mistaken, right, Chairman Savoy? At a year ago, it was dedicated to Lamar Dixon, and we took that and dedicated the excess funds to the road and bridge. So I don't want the citizens to think that we're missing out on a federal project, because if you have one, we need to know about it so we can either start bankrolling some money for something that's coming, or did you mean accumulating money for federal road projects?
Well, remind you, Mr. Valentine, that the roads, the state roads in the Master Transportation Plan we've all been working on, those that qualify for federal funds require 20% match. And Mr. Bradbury has recently stated publicly, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and let's just use, for example, highways like 73, 42, which we need to widen, they need capacity. He stated in a public meeting in our parish the other day, and he's sending us his PowerPoint, that the state, his department, DOTD, will not have money probably in 2009 to match federal dollars for state roads that need capacity that qualify for federal highway dollars. And so what he basically said is that we don't have the money to match the 80% of the federal dollars. That money is going to go somewhere else. Now, if local government, either through the impact fee, and it's a great point that you brought up about the increase in sales tax, but I think it's important our citizens also understand, remind them that even with this significant increase, with the hundreds of millions of dollars that we need for road projects, it's like dropping a pebble in a large ocean, what we need. The dedicated tax that we truly have dedicated now for roads, 2/3 of a half cent, only brought in $45 million the last 10 years. And we have a documented need of $550 to $700 million, depending on which projects we decide to do when. And so, and I think we all realize that our dedicated road tax we currently have, we're going to need it to just maintain parish roads and these new subdivisions. I just left a subdivision association meeting tonight, and them talking about needing some road and drainage work done in basically a new area. And so as all these new subdivisions age, that demand is going to only increase, Mr. Valentine. So I desperately ask this council to consider that impact fee again at some future date, and it's dedicated to roads and in that master plan, because unless we're going to tax our citizens to death, to me, I'd rather have those who are developing new homes and new businesses pay a proportionate share to help us, because just the report tonight saw that was, and that wasn't all the residential development, with renovations and renting apartments. That was just new residential permits for the month, 180-something, with the commercial permits. And the reality is we have a significant infrastructure shortage now, and it's growing worse each month. And so if the Transportation Committee comes up with a better plan, administration is certainly willing to listen to it.
One more item, since Mr. Chairman, since the parish president mentioned Lamar Dixon, in the future plans, I will alert this board that I will be handing out a letter that I've been contacted by a group that is interested in buying Lamar Dixon. Take it off the parish hands. They have a considerable amount of funds, but I think the way our lease reads, that they cannot negotiate with Mr. Rome. So I'm going to be asking this council to at least just grant a resolution so that Lamar Dixon Foundation can negotiate with somebody else that may be interested in buying Lamar Dixon. I won't go into a great detail, but they will keep the mission statement as it is and also increase the economic fold from it. We still do not have a plan, Parish President, and I know you're hoping that $10 million, and I do too, hope it comes from the federal government Mayor Landrieu promised. But with the Katrina situation that we've had here in South Louisiana, the fact that they've essentially anything south of I-10, which you've already mentioned, will not be shelters, it's going to be highly unlikely that we're going to be able to secure some money. But I hope we can. And if you got an update you can give us on that, I'll allow you to do that if you'd like.
Oh, you'll allow me? I appreciate that, Mr. Valentine. I didn't know you could allow me to do that. Mr. Chairman, can he allow me to do that?
Mr. President?
You want me to give an update on Lamar Dixon now?
No, sir.
Okay.
If there's any money coming down that you know about, any new information, yeah, we would take that.
All right, $250,000 from Senator Vitter, yes, that's come through Housing and Urban Development. We got the number, don't have the check yet. It's enough for the down payment to exercise the option to buy it, and I think it's absolutely something we should do and be part of the parish recreational program in other areas. Great place for a skateboard park, walking trails, bicycle paths around a 12-acre lake, and the Sinfuel project and the things that have come around that will give us plenty of economic development. I think we also have to look at quality of life issues, Mr. Valentine. And so, but now, if this is the same firm you were talking about before, Mr. Rome has met with these people several times as well as the parish. So if this is the same old thing we're rehashing,
well,
I'm happy to meet with anybody on it.
No, he don't want to meet with you. They want to meet with Rome.
They can meet Mr.
According to our lease, they can't do it, and that's all I'm saying.
Anyone else? Ms. Fontenot?
Well, I just wanted to ask one question. This was the first time I've heard that the FEMA trailer park was a commercial park. And my question is, if it's a commercial park, did they comply with the parish rules and regulations for a commercial park?
I'm not sure where you've been, Ms. Fontenot, if you ask me a question. This trailer park goes back to 1984, and it was purchased by a new owner in about 2001. And yes, he went to the parish administration at that time and renewed the license for a commercial trailer park. And then I think about 2001, they changed the zoning in that area from high-density residential, from what I've been told, and obviously this all predates me, to commercial crossroads, because that trailer park had been there since '84, and when zoning first went to a place in '99, it was zoned for a commercial trailer park. When the new ownership took over, and this is still being litigated, I have a report that the attorney said not to make public yet because it is in litigation, but this report will clearly show that there was a commercial trailer park since 1984, or whatever date that was, and the ownership, regardless of who the ownership was, continued to pay renewal permits for their commercial trailer park. Now, the question that may be pertinent is what time between '84 and 2005 of December, if an increase in spots occurred, when did that take place and how? And obviously, that's why you have a third branch of government, the judicial branch, to decide those issues. When administrative branch back in 02-03 said you come under the old regulations for trailer park instead of the new ones, in their opinion. And then that's challenged later on within the courts to decide And the issue, since you brought it up, we hadn't talked about it because of litigation, but the governing authority now has two sets of trailer park regulations. One dated, I think, 1988, and one dated in 1997. And they are at times in conflict. And so because of that, that's part of the issue here, is which set of regulations apply on this particular site once the ownership changed. But there's no doubt from the investigation, and we ordered two investigations of the executive branch of government to see what happened on this, and both of those reports showed that there had been a continuation of a commercial trailer park there since I think it was 84, whatever the date was when it first opened.
Mr. President, if we have two sets of regulations and administration knows about that, administration needs to get that in committee so we can rectify that.
Ms. Fontenot, that was given to the council leadership several months ago about two sets of trailer park regulations.
Did you bring us a solution?
Yes, but this case is being litigated. The attorneys have requested that we not publicly discuss this now. So if you want to get into that.
No, we're not going to get into that. We're going to take care of that at a later date. Any further questions for the parish president? Having a number 6, consent agenda for July 20th.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any questions? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 7, Utilities Committee. Mr. Byrigger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee met Wednesday night. I believe it was the 16th. We had an in-depth discussion about the LCDBG grant and the bid that was received. I'm not sure about which company to do the project in Hillaryville. And it is a Utilities Committee recommendation and also a administration recommendation to deny this bid and return the LCDBG grant back to the state so we can apply for other monies, because the bid was approximately $500,000 more than budgeted.
Second, Mr. Chairman. Got a motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Mr. Byrigger, that's all you have?
Yes, sir. The other issue will be taken up under 13B.
All right. Number 8, Personnel Committee. Mr. Valentine.
Thank you, Chairman Savoy. We interviewed a few people this last week, one for the Tourist Commission Advisory Board, which is a new advisory board that the council is setting up with also with the Recreation Committee, similar to the Strategic Planning, and the Waterways Commission. The recommendation for the Tourist Commission seat would be Mr. Noah Robert.
I move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Shakespeare. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
The advisory board to the Council Recreation Committee will be Ms. Pam Ellis.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
The Waterways Commission, which is an alternate position that became vacant, the committee recommends Mr. David Piku. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shakespeare, second by Ms. Fontenot. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Okay, B is the ordinance for the exempt supervisory personnel. This is the item we talked about, put on as a 2/3 agenda. Actually, we were going to discuss it, but really, you've been past that ordinance, and it is a suggestion that we put that ordinance, introduce that tonight.
Motion introduced, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
That's all, Chairman Savoy.
Thank you, Mr.
On
Valentine.
that same matter, this council had asked us to look up whether or not you could pay exempt employees overtime pay. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, there's no problem with paying those employees overtime, and the amount that you pay can be set by your policy as long as it is consistent, non-discriminatory, you can set those policies. The Fair Labor Standards Act makes no prohibitions for those types of payments.
Thank you for the information, Mr. Babb.
And that was one half of that ordinance is dealing with when we have emergency situation and FEMA reimburses, what have you, we reimburse the time and a half. And that's what that was dealing with. Ms. Stroud had a question on that, and so that was the answer.
Okay.
Excuse me,
right.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shakes,
Thank you, Ms. Babb.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes, sir.
Could you please see that the council members get notified when there's an opening for these
Oh,
boards
absolutely.
and the applications? So
In fact, I would urge the technology department to, I think they have a standard advertisement, and all they need to do is just change when we have openings. It's been running lately, and I think it has some openings already been filled. We just need to get with Ozzy to make sure that is, and I will
just send
also.
it out as email.
I also will have Ms. Patterson contact everybody when we have an opening, so that council members have any volunteers that are interested, they could certainly apply.
It's mostly the dates of the applications.
Surely.
That's what they're interested in.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Number 9, Recreation Committee. Ms. Stroud's out. I'm going to call up Ms. Carrie Kinchin, which you got a little presentation for us, I hear.
Short and sweet. Mr. Bell is going to pass you out a packet. We've put together a really quick presentation with some pictures of both skaters and skate plazas. I don't know how to access those pictures. If you look in your packet, you're going to notice that on the right side, I've given you some skateboarding information, starting with a letter to the parish president that started the whole process from 2 Boy Scouts. Then there are 2 articles pertaining to the popularity of skateboarding, with an essay following by a skateboarder on the lack of places to skate. The 5th one, and I've numbered each article or packet of information for you. Number 5 gives you the demographics of skaters. Number 6 gives you the skate park industry statistics. And if you look at your screen, you're going to see where some of these skaters, where most of them are skating in the cities and counties across the United States and in Louisiana. And you can see that it's in the cities, and not in parks, not in skate parks. Rails, stairways, loading docks, curbs, sidewalks, benches, ledges, you name it, they're skating there. Number 7 gives you the skateboard participation statistics. Number 8 gives you the skate park design and construction statistics. Number 9 gives you some ideas on skate park funding, which is grants and fundraisers. Number 11, I pulled some rules and regulations from the state of California that gives you an idea of where we would go if we were to, when we institute the rules and regulations for our skate plaza. Number 12, I've given you the Louisiana's liability statute that exempts us from the liability as long as we're not negligent. As long as we maintain the park, we are exempt from those liability issues. 13 is just a copy of the Shreveport Skate Plaza that just opened in March. It is similar to what we would like to do, but we would like for ours to be larger. And 14 gives you some tips for designing skate plazas. And the last page was just a sample from the NRPA, which is the journal for recreation in the United States, and that is just a sample of what is out there for vendors building skate parks and plazas to meet the need. On the left side of your packet, I've given you a Parks and Planning. It gives you the SJB scope of services for the skateboard park consulting, and behind that, what SJB does, and followed by that, some diagrams and pictures of places that they've helped develop. What we would like is to engage their services to help us locate, assess, and develop sites for a skate park, skate plaza. They're already doing many projects with recreation across the state. They've given us a detailed scope of services, of what they will do and not do. We would offer them 3 to 5 sites, and some of you have already suggested a few sites. Councilwoman Fontenot suggested 621. We will look at that. Parish President has suggested Lamar Dixon. We will look at that. We've looked at Prairieville Park, and we will continue to look and offer them sites for development. So what we would really like for the council to do is to give us the go-ahead to proceed with this project and move to the next step in the process, which would be to secure the services of SJB to locate, assess, and help develop a property to build a skate plaza for the residents of Ascension Parish.
Mr. Chairman, that was a recommendation from Recreation Committee, and I believe it was not to exceed 7,500, Ms. Kinchin,
7,500.
for the
Yes, sir.
contractual agreement between
Yes, sir. I think
scope of
that's in-
services for SJB.
And I think that's there. I've tried to include as much information so that when we try to get back together with them, and we've talked about maybe the last council meeting in October, where we would bring those sites back to the council, and hopefully by then this packet will have given you all of the information that you need to ask informed questions. I'll have some skaters here, so hopefully those types of questions they can answer. I won't have a clue about those moves and the equipment. I will learn as well along with you. So that's where we are, and I would like to move to the next step.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Byricker. Is there any discussion? One question, Ms. Kinchin.
Okay.
How much property are you talking about?
We would like to look at tracts of land at 5 acres so that we could develop the parking, and but that would be something that as we work with SJB, they could, but we're looking at least 5 acres,
Okay.
I think, to do the parking and have it grow. The last thing we would want to do is build one and have it be confined and then not have a place to grow. So, and certainly if any of you have sites, I've given you a map in there of all of the parks that we already have in Ascension Parish, but if you have some suggestions of land you'd like for us to look at, by all means, we would entertain those as well.
No, thank you. Any further, Mr. McConnell?
I would like to offer a commendation to the Gutentag brothers for writing this letter and getting that ball rolling, and 2 young men with a good idea can make a difference. And
Yes.
2 young people can make a difference in the
Yes.
parish. A good commendation to them.
Thank you.
Wonderful thing.
Mr. President.
How many members of the council, Sherry, have been up to the
Councilwoman,
sports complex in,
Councilwomen,
St.
excuse me,
Francis on that 88
Councilwoman Fontenot and Stroud went with us with some representatives from SJB to look at their sports complex up there, and I think I'm safe in saying that we were duly impressed with what they're doing with such a small population and how they're using their money. But there's a lot of collaboration there between the school district, the county, and recreation. It's a beautiful place. I was very impressed.
Now, have we been over to Hammond to look at their skate park in the city?
Yes, we have. And when we meet again in October, the recreation director from Hammond has graciously offered to come and offer any answers to questions that you have about liability, about damage that they've had. I'm sure that there's going to be graffiti, but we have graffiti now, so I'm not sure that we're going to be able to stop that. So I hope that doesn't become an issue. But he has graciously offered to come and answer questions you may have about that park's been there about a year. So
And I met with him yesterday over there.
It's already
We went
too
to the
crowded.
wastewater site, and we went to the skate park, and so Mayor Foster would be more than happy, I think I told you that, to help us in any way as far as information and what they went through to build this one. It's a beautiful facility.
Right.
Any further questions? Any opposition to the motion? Having none, motion passes.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Ms. Font. I'm sorry, Ms. Kinchin. Number 10, Transportation Committee. Ms. Fontenot.
Thank you, Councilman Savoy. The Transportation Committee did meet last night. Most of the things that were, in fact, all of the things that were approved last night will not be until the next council meeting that will be on that agenda. I do have an update. Mr. Kent Israel informed me before the meeting that L. Landry Road and Henderson Bayou Roads, the repairs will be started tomorrow and completed by Sunday. As always, we meet the second Tuesday of the month. at 7 p.m. or right after the Utilities Committee meeting in this building. Everyone is invited. I want to remind everybody the school's back in, buses are rolling, slow down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fontenot. Number 11, Strategic Planning Committee, Mr. Shea Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next meeting will be August the 28th on a Monday, 6 p.m. And Ms. Suzanne, please put on the agenda and notify OEP. We'd like them to give us a presentation for their plan for local evacuation for the West Bank residents in an appropriate event.
That's all you have, Mr. Shea Snyder?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Number 12, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met last week, and we have item number 12A, which was a contract between Ascension Parish Government and Pavement Marking Company to provide highway markings.
Second.
Maximum $30,000.
Motion by Mr. Shea Snyder, second by Mr. Byringer. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
All right, we have item 12B. We heard a presentation from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and some different engineering groups and some finance groups on the Donaldsonville Riverfront development. They presented a conceptual plan, and the committee voted to recommend to the full council that we agree on the face of it to the concept that was presented to us last Thursday, and that was a recommendation from Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Shea Snyder, second by Mr. Byringer. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition?
Just a brief discussion that it was brought out in the Finance Committee that by approving just this conceptual idea, we are not committing this parish council to any funding or any involvement. Is just accepting their concept of what they want to do. So we're not committing ourselves in any way.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shea Snyder.
On another sidebar, just this past week, we have had a very large developer out of New Orleans through our economic development group in the parish that visited in the Donaldsonville area, in the riverfront area, and they use this concept plan as their basis for possible investment. They were very impressed, and they will make another trip shortly, and this was the document that they would feed off of, so it's been productive already.
Any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Having none, motion passes.
And that's our report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Number 13, Resolution Hazard Mitigation Grant. Mr. Ronnie Hughes, Paul Keller.
Mr. Keller's going to represent the administration on this, Mr. Chairman.
I think this also might answer some questions that arose earlier tonight. In case some of you are not familiar, this is your present hazard mitigation plan that's been accepted by the council, accepted by the state, and accepted by FEMA. It was completed in 2002. In 2003, it was after it came back from FEMA. It was council resolution accepted it as the official plan. Well, what's been looked at is that normally they say that 8 to 10 years these type of plans would have to be brought up to date. Well, what happened is that Katrina and Rita changed the book. So many things that you have in this plan just doesn't match up to what's the new regulations, and a lot of other things. Like, for example, the things that were addressed in here was basically from flood. So what would happen is that you would mitigate by either raising the house or buying out the property. Well, now the guidelines are changing. You have other alternatives to you. And what they have come up with, in fact, and which we have started, and we have attended both a state meeting and a national meeting, is to take this plan and update it to the new standards of Katrina and Rita that have, now they know what wind can do, they know what storm surge can do. And what will happen is that it will not cost the parish anything to do this. we will get the money, in fact, committed after the 29th, as soon as we turn in the documents, to do the process. The process will update the plan, and so that everybody understands is that when we look at it, originally, as I said, you had to do two things. You either relocate or you elevate. Well, in the new planning, for example, we will deal with wind retrofitting. Now, which will allow, after the plan goes into effect and the funds will then flow for the next project, that basically you will be able to apply for and get up to $150,000 per structure to do a retrofit. Now, one of the things in this plan that will be a serious connection that brought up tonight was that the fact that all the schools in the parish had facilities that were listed in it. Yet a wind evaluation and a storm surge evaluation had not been done on any of the facilities. Lamar Dixon, for example, was used both by the feds and the state as a facility, and the wind surge had not been done on it. And so what this new plan will do, it will allow, and once you turn in and say, well, these are the buildings we have that need to be studied, and our wind conditions have to be taken into account for various 100 mile an hour, 150 miles an hour, so that you know when you have going to use it for a shelter, what to post on it. As a shelter, as you say, of last resort for your own people, because we'll be taken out of that other realm. But again, for Lamar Dixon, if it's going to be used by nursing homes, you will have to have the extreme retrofit because of the fact that these people have no chance of being moved once they're brought into the facility. So this will allow us to do this. Another thing it will do, it will allow for circumstances that could be alleviated by better drainage, to submit for drainage in those areas, which is something that was not before feasible. Another condition that we can do is, which we will not apply to us, it will allow for actually having what they call tornado-safe buildings. That if you have to have a place for a certain number of employees to be in because they have ultimate responsibilities of a tornado, well, we can't show that one because of the fact you haven't had enough tornadoes of consequence to get into it. But then it would also allow for post-disaster code enforcement. So part of this project will be to analyze what are the new codes, how will Ascension Parish go about enforcing these new codes, what costs it will be, and what costs that we might get reimbursed by the federal government to do this. Ascension is one of the very few parishes, gentlemen, that are in a position to do its own code enforcement. In fact, your neighboring parishes, including St. James, St. John, Lafourche, they have already gotten together as a regional basis with the regional planning commissioner, setting all their new codes for them and going to provide the personnel to do code enforcement in the three parishes. But your codes already meet the national standards. So it's not the idea that they have to be drawn up. They just have to be modified to a little higher standards. And your public works director has staff. He has the expertise in-house to do this. But if the federal government is willing to put up some money to help with those personnel, of course, we're going to try to make sure that they leave it here. So this is basically what we're doing. We're just asking you for permission to go ahead and apply for this because we only have until the 29th of the month.
So moved.
We're almost to that point right now.
Got a motion by Mr. Shakespeare.
Second.
Second by Mr. McConnell. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. 13A, Courthouse, Donaldsonville, change order. Mr. Henry Chauvin.
Yes,
Come up
we
and
have a,
share with us what you're asking here.
okay, we have a request from the contractor for an extension in time on the courthouse in Donaldsonville. He's asking for 19 days, and I'd like to make a recommendation that we give him 19 days for rain days.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Shake Snyder. Is there any discussion? I passed some, Mr. Henry gave us some pictures. Everybody needs to take a look at them. Coming out very nice.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shake Snyder?
I feel like I have to add also, this project was done on over a 100-year-old building, a very significant renovation, and was done without any work change orders. And it's pretty remarkable that you can go through a courthouse design for something like that without any work change orders. And I want to compliment Mr. Chauvin for the design and the hard work that he's done. I know what all the extras that he's done, and the construction company, I think that was Stafford, for all the extra things that they've done. I know all these little bitty things that it takes to do an old building, and they took it upon themselves to just take it in and do it. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. It's really a showpiece for the parish, and we invite everybody very shortly to come out and see when it's complete.
We take care of one problem, and you give us another one, Mr. Henry. Now, every judge is going to want to be taking court over there.
That's not a
Good,
problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been there a couple of times this week, meeting with Mr. Cassard and
Right.
meeting with the four people. It's really
He told me that.
doing really good. And so you'll be thinking, as soon as we finish this project, our bicentennial next year, the assessor's area has had significant leaks lately, and we think we got those fixed. But the flooring throughout the facility, the wooden floors need to be redone and all, and we hope to be able to do that in-house with the budget we give to you this year for next year. We also have a group in the city area, Donaldsonville, who want to work with us to put some benches and do some flower beds and things around the courthouse. And so, plus the bell or the clock tower is back working now. We spent a few dollars. I think it goes off at 3 times during the day right now. So that's, and it's so different than what it was before. So if you want to do a little group thing over there sometime, let us know, and Mr. Cassari will arrange for us to go over there. It's really be a beautiful facility, and hopefully a very functional courthouse as well. Thank you, Henry, for overseeing that project the way you did.
Yes, sir.
I wish we could have gave you the one here about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
I noticed you got adequate lighting in here.
That's right. Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Henry.
All right, thank you, sir.
13B is ACUD. Who's going to take this up?
I'll take it.
Mr.
Marvin
Grove
Grove.
handled it in
Mr.
utilities, I recommend.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Grove.
Marvin Grove.
He has a little presentation about it also.
Okay, gentlemen, I'll pass out to all of you, if you have in front of you, just a brief overall view of our Phase 3 project, ACD number 1. I'm happy to come to you tonight and say I'm not coming here to ask you for money. And for 6 years ago this month, we were formed, and we have been progressing. Now we're up to over 400 customers. We're serving areas that have never been served before, and we're ready to go in our Phase 3. In order for us to go there, we have to catch up with other parishes, something that's not been done in this parish before, where a water district is asking to, or we're going to ask to pass a millage so we can move forward with some projects. A $5.5 million bond issue that we actually put on the ballot November 7th. Why November 7th? Well, for various reasons. First of all, it's going to be it won't be as costly for us to have this election. We want to pay a percentage, which is be less than $2,000 for our percentage of putting it on the ballot. And the second of all is, most importantly, we have a lot of commercial projects that are waiting on us. We need to make a commitment, and I made a list of those, and the industrial project wants to be expanded twice at our size now. We have a hotel. We have fire hydrants we can put it near all residents. It's a real big project that we're getting into. We've surveyed the residents. We feel comfortable that this project could pass the voters, and all we asking the council tonight And we thank the Utility Committee for passing it last night, Councilor Berry, and of course we thank Ken Chick-Snyder for coming to all our meetings and working with us and helping us along with anything this board has done in the past. And as legal counsel can advise you, this is only for the purpose of it calls for this council to allow us to call this election on November 7th. It has no obligation for this board whatsoever, but you have to call it for us.
Second. Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Chick-Snyder. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having the motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Let me ask you a question.
Mr. President.
Mr.
Yeah.
Groh, what's the position of the plants over here on this?
Oh, I'm sorry. The plants are excluded from this taxing proposal because of the district, industrial district. Although indirectly they may be involved because if we're part of our district in getting the water, adequate water pressure, we're going to probably have to charge them a service fee. So indirectly they may have to pay for it, but we can't tax them because there's a question whether it's legal or not, and for the purpose of this tax proposal, we're not including them in our tax base.
So we're leaving them out.
Leaving them out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Zahn? All right, Mr. Lance Brock, is he still here? Mr. Lance, you just don't come on up so we can try to get through these as quickly as possible. All right. I do have a couple of speaker cards filled out here. Okay. Number 14.
Mr. Salvo, I don't believe we actually voted on that last agenda item.
You said discussion, but I don't think we voted
Did
on
you,
it.
Suzanne?
I think it went through. Nobody had
Did we just vote on that? Did they just
On
vote?
the ACUD.
Yeah.
Bring it to,
We did? Okay.
You guys are all talking.
I'll slow down.
I'm sorry. Apologize.
Number 14. Zoning Review ID 1532.06, Track A1B of the Jack H. McDowell property for Sunrise Business Ventures LLC located on the north side of Pleasant Road, approximately 1,200 feet west of Airline Highway to amend the Central Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to mixed use. This is to accept or deny. Mr. Lance, what was the recommendation?
The recommendation was to deny.
What's the pleasure?
You got a
Move to
speaker on
deny.
this?
Move to accept the planning and zoning
Did we have a speaker
recommendation.
on this, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Not number 14, no.
I second Ms.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot, second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having the motion passes. Number 15, zoning review ID 1454.06, Lot 3, Magnolia State Road for Terry McDowell Boyer, located on the east side of Magnolia Lane, approximately 300 feet north of Perkins Road, to amend the Central Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to crossroads commercial. Mr. Lance, what was the recommendation?
The recommendation was to deny.
Okay, I do have someone wishing to speak on this item, Mr. Jeff Rushing. He's wanting to speak on items 15 through 18.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Rushing. I live at 18461 Magnolia Estates Lane. I'm here to speak on agenda items 15, 16, 17, and 18. On June 14th, 2006, a public hearing was held before the Ascension Parish Zoning Commission, at which time other residents of Magnolia Estates subdivision, as well as myself, spoke of our desire to not have these 4 lots rezoned. The recommendation and vote of the Zoning Commission that night was to deny the rezoning. I am before this parish council tonight to ask that you would agree with the appointed commission and deny the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Also have Ms. Terry Boyer.
Hi, Terry Boyer. I actually own that lot, Lot 3 at Magnolia Estates. The last meeting, I did not have some paperwork that was filed on this property. I think y'all have it in your folders. Did y'all get that paperwork? What it is it states that when Mr. Gerald developed the property, which was in 1982, well, the final plat was in 1981, he filed at the courthouse that the front 8 lots of that subdivision be designated or zoned. There was no zoning at the time, but designated commercial. There were no lots sold before that time. So everyone that had purchased a lot, it was always a known fact. Mr. Gerald actually owns one of the lots still today, and he made all the sales, and he always made it, known to the persons buying the lots that the front 8 lots were always commercial. I did not have that information at the last meeting, so that's what I wanted to present to y'all. Those front lots, 50% of those lots have properties on them. I think you'll have pictures of them, and they're acting commercially now. Now, on my particular lot, there's nothing, and I'm just asking that. My intention is to put a small office building, brick veneer office building. I actually live right near there, about a mile away, and I'm going to put my own office there, and I would like to lease out like 3 other spaces. That is my intention. That's what I bought the lot for. My lot is next door to the iron shop, across the street from the car wash, and across the street and catty corner from the convenience store that's already there. Did y'all get the paperwork stating what was filed? It says amendments to the restrictions of Perkins South Business Park. It changed the name to Magnolia Estates, and then number 2 states that all of the lots contained in the subdivision are hereby designated as residential lots and no multifamily dwellings permitted except lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 54, 55, 56, and 57, which are designated as commercial. And as I said, that was before anyone ever purchased any property.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillsback.
Yeah, question for Mr. Brock. You aware of this paperwork that Ms. Boyer is speaking of?
I was aware that there were restrictions on the subdivision and that some of those lots were designated as, in the restrictions as commercial, but we do not restrict or regulate subdivision regulations or covenants of subdivisions.
Ms. Terry, you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I move that we accept the recommendation of Planning and Zoning to deny.
You got a motion by Ms. Fontenot.
I'll say it.
Second by Mr. Valentine. Any discussion?
Discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Byringer.
So, Mr. Brock, this is filed in the courthouse as commercial property, and people look up this particular property in the courthouse, which are legal binding documents, and we have also legal binding documents which are totally opposite. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's somewhat
To a certain
confusing
extent,
to
a certain extent,
public.
yes. To a certain extent, yes, because we do allow commercial in an RM district. We do allow what's on the corner right now as that convenience store is permitted in a commercial district. Really, what Ms. Boyer wants to do is permitted in a residential district. There's a limitation of square footage of these businesses or these commercial uses, but there are uses that are allowed in an RM district that would be commercial.
But it doesn't specify that in the courthouse.
No, and just like it doesn't really specify in the restrictions what type of commercial that it would be.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillsback.
Question for Mr. Babbitt, legal counsel.
Sir.
This goes to court. How's this case going to be ruled on? Is what's filed in the courthouse, is that going to be?
What's filed in the courthouse has nothing to do with zoning. That's a private restriction from a seller to a buyer. That does not regulate zoning.
Ms. Fontenot.
I attended the meeting that the residents attended. They have some concerns. Ms. Boyer did buy the property with a commercial building on it. She wants to do a larger scale. The planning and zoning originally, I think, said that it would be spot zoning, so I think that's why they didn't want to do it the first time, and so she went out and got some other residents to come and try to get theirs done so that she could get hers done. This leaves open these other, she says she wants to do an office building, so these other people now that are going to do the zoning can go and do anything that's allowed in this zoning. These people have lived there all their lives, 20 and 30 years. It's been a long time. And they have their residents there, and they have requested that we deny it. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, you can see there was no opposition. And if we're going to follow the rules and regulations that we've set forth, and that's to take the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning, unless there's something proven otherwise, this what she brought tonight has not proved that there's that it's zoned that, because it's zoned the way we have it zoned. Otherwise, she wouldn't be here tonight asking us to rezone it. So I'm just asking you guys to stick with what Planning and Zoning, who have been through it, and they have gone over the paperwork, and they have decided that indeed this needed to be denied. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Got a motion and a second to accept the recommendation from Planning and Zoning. Is there any opposition?
I object.
Yeah, I object.
Two objections, Mr. Byrega and Mr. Hillensbeck. Motion passes. Number 16, zoning review ID 1499.06, lot 56, Magnolia Estate Road for KMB LLC, located on the west side of Magnolia Lane, approximately 200 feet north of Perkins Road, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to crossroads commercial. Mr. Brock,
The recommendation was to deny.
what's the pleasure?
I move to accept the recommendation of Planning and Zoning.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot, second by Mr. Shakespeare. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition?
I object.
One objection, Mr. Byrega. Motion passes. Number 17, zoning review ID 1500.06, lot 2, Magnolia Estate Road for Kenneth Mobley Sr., located on the east side of Magnolia Lane, approximately 200 feet north of Perkins Road, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to crossroads commercial.
The recommendation was to deny the request.
What's the pleasure?
I move that we accept Planning and Zoning's recommendation to deny.
Got a motion by Ms. Fontenot,
Second.
second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition?
Object.
One objection, Mr. Byrega. Number 18, zoning review ID 1501.06, lot 4, Magnolia Estate Road for Jody Dakota, located on the east side of Magnolia Lane, approximately 400 feet north of Perkins Road, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to crossroads commercial. Mr. Brock,
The recommendation was to deny the request.
I move that we accept Planning and Zoning's recommendation to deny.
motion by Ms. Fontenot,
Second.
second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition?
Objection.
One objection, Mr. Byrega. Motion passes. Number 19, zoning review ID 1531.06 for James Smiley Jr., located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 22, approximately 3,400 feet west of Ruffton Martinez Road, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to medium-intensity residential. Mr. Brock,
The recommendation was to deny the request.
what's the pleasure of the council?
I move that we accept Planning and Zoning's recommendation
Second.
to deny.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 20,
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask you, I'll recuse myself from this agenda item.
Mr. Lance Brooks, didn't we have a phone call from the,
Yes, sir, from the developer, owner. He requests that we pass on this.
we're going to pass on 20. 21, acceptance of private road into Ascension Parish road maintenance system. And we have no author. Mr. Rue? You have any idea about this, Mr. Rue?
I do.
Mr. Lance?
Yeah, we both do, yes. You can answer any questions you want.
Yes, sir. This is a road, acceptance of a private road, Mr. Ernest Jackson, Jackson Oaks Road. It went to the Planning Commission, and the recommendation was to deny based that it did not meet the criteria.
I make a motion to accept the Planning and Zoning's recommendation to deny.
Got a motion by Ms. Fontenot,
Second.
second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. accept the recommendation of planning and zoning,
Was to deny.
which was to deny.
Thank you.
Number 22, introduction of an ordinance revoking the public servitude on that certain tract or parcel of land designated as Lot 3A as shown on the map entitled Map Showing the Survey of Lot 3-A, the place location, in Section 18, Township 9 South, Range 3 East, SELD, Parish of Ascension, Louisiana, for Marshall Higgins.
I move to introduce the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Byrigger. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
I second that.
Number 23, introduction of an ordinance revoking a 15-foot drainage servitude shown on the tract of land designated as Lot C1A1 as shown on the map entitled Property.
Motion to introduce.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to introduce public hearing. Second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 24, public hearing to inform the citizens of Ascension on the accomplishments of the parish on the recently completed Louisiana Development Block Grant contract number 600808, and to obtain citizens' views and to respond to questions related to the parish's performance on this grant. Ms. Martha Collins and Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. At the last council meeting, we were here to advise you that with this program, we have to call for a public hearing. Roberto Mercedes is our consultant that handles that, and he will explain to you why we're here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, members of the council, citizens of Ascension Parish. The purpose of this project is to inform the citizens of Ascension that the sewer project for the community of Darrow has been substantially completed. And since this project was partially funded with Louisiana Community Development Block Grant funds, it is required that a closeout public hearing be held. At this time, basically, what I will do is do some highlights of the project and then ask if any of the attendees have any questions. The project has provided sewer for the community of Darrow. At the present time, there are 60 residences hooked up to the project. We are in the process of requiring an additional 20 residents to hook up to the project. The project, it will be $1.7 million, of which $1 million is LCDBG funding and $700,000 approximately is parish funding. We anticipate closing, all the closing documents will be forwarded to the state as soon as the lien period is over for this project in approximately 45 days. So at this time, if there are any questions from the audience concerning this project.
Motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, open public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Motion closed by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Ms. Fontenot. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Roberto.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if concerning the LCDBG program on item 7, would it be possible if the resolution could be read back?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with further discussion with Mr. Mercedo, we may have made a mistake there, and I asked this body to amend the agenda and bring back 7A, the resolution for the LCBDG grant.
I second that motion.
7A, you wanted to bring that up back for consideration?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
please.
sir. And Mr. Macedo is going to explain what we may have done wrong.
All right. I've got a motion and a second on the floor right now.
To amend the agenda. To
No.
return to
No.
this item.
No, I have a motion and a second to accept the public hearing.
Oh,
Now,
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Do we rescind that first, or do we move forward?
Move forward. I thought we was finished there, I'm sorry.
All right. Is there any opposition to this motion on the public hearing that was just called? Okay. Now, we have a motion and a second to revisit item 7A. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. All right, Mr. Byringer?
Mr. Macedo?
Yes, I want to make sure that at least part of the resolution, what I heard was that you were rejecting the bids, but also wish to send back the $983,670 that you had been awarded by the LCDBG program for 2005. Is that the wish of the council, to send the money back? And
That was the recommendation to us, Mr. Macedo, but if you have some further information, please share it if we need to retract that.
obviously, having received bids that exceed your budget, you have two possibilities. Either you contact the funding agency and perhaps discuss reducing the scope of the project to put it in within budget, and the other alternative, of course, is to reject those bids and to look for additional funding to make the project feasible. So by simply returning the funds back, it may have some repercussions on future funding from LCDBG. And at this time, we have two other projects that are being considered for 2007 funding. That is for the Lemonville project and for Killerville Phase 2. So,
Mr. McConnell.
I'd like to offer a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we revoke the previous decision of this council regarding this particular program, and that instead we, as recommended by Mr. Macedo, we re-examine the project but keep the LCDBG grant.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Shakespeare. Any question?
Discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Valentine.
Okay, what we're doing is we're rejecting the bid. Now, we're going to reject the motion that we first stated. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, sir. My motion was to revoke.
Right.
That initial
Correct.
vote.
But you said but we need to also reject the bids. Am I right? Because we're revoking that whole motion. We need to reject the bids
Mr. Macedo,
also.
how should we proceed with this as far as if we don't?
I think that's a Mr. Babin question.
No, you can't revoke it if you're going to look for additional funding or also alter the project to come within budget.
right, the first thing would be to reject the bids, because you don't have the money to do the project.
Reject the bid.
That's it.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Valentine.
Yeah, the other night at the Utilities Committee, that was explained to us, and that's essentially what the motion was supposed to be, just a rejection of the bids, because they were in excess of our budget.
That's all we asking for.
I think you want you to reject the bid and reevaluate the scope for the project that you will bid and rebid it at a new scope.
Okay. Mr. President.
Make sure I understand this now, Roberto, too. The other day when we met, you told me you were going to send me a letter recommending that we reject the bids. Have we received that in parish government yet?
Well, since there are no sufficient funds,
Okay.
you have to reject them.
Now, you also said the other day, what period of time do we have to use this $900-something thousand?
You have
the end of the year?
Oh, no, you have about 2.5 years.
Okay, so this money can sit here for that long?
Yeah, I mean, not for 2.5 years. You would want to be, to revive the project, so to speak, as soon as possible. So
I thought you said something the other day about within 60 days we had to rebid it.
No, not
we reject it.
necessarily, no.
Okay.
No.
That is an option. We can rebid it in spite of the fact, we've rejected these bids. I mean,
Right. Well,
that's without changing the scope, so we could
yeah.
go back and
Basically,
try one more time.
if you take the same scope and you rebid it 60 days from now, you can cross your fingers and hope that you have a low bidder that is within your budget.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you.
We might want to try that before we revisit the scope, so.
All right, Mr. McConnell. Let's make sure Ms. Suzanne got what we were looking for.
All right, the motion was to reject the initial vote, to rescind the vote that we made earlier this evening,
All right.
and to reject the bids for this project, and that's it.
That's it. Motion by Mr. by Mr. McConnell. Second by Mr. Byron. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Having none, motion passes. Is there any opposition to the motion? Having none, motion passes. All right, that cleans that up. All right, thank you, Mr. Roberto.
Thank you, Roberto.
All right, Ricky, you ready?
Yes, sir. I got a bunch of calls.
One gentleman that would like to speak on the matter of items 25 through 34. Mr. Willett Quintma, come on up.
You want to open a public hearing first?
Motion.
Motion to open the public hearing. Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Todd Lambert.
Wait, just a point of order. Do we normally not read the ordinance?
We do.
Then we open the public hearing, and we invite the. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine, Mr. McConnell.
We want to do
That's
this the right way and get through it.
In order to get this done, all the preambles of all these motions are identical. I'm going to read the first one, and then I'll read the actual ordinance of each subsequent one. So you can only hit the preamble one time. They're all identical. To amend the Ascension Parish Subdivision Regulations, Section 20.202, whereas the Parish of Ascension has in effect a comprehensive plan of zoning, and pursuant to that plan, a parish-wide development code was adopted by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority, which became effective on June 1st, 1999. Whereas the Ascension Parish Development Code provides for a procedure for its amendment, and development code and related regulations and restrictions by initiation by the Parish Planning and Zoning Commission. The Parish Planning and Zoning Commission has initiated an amendment to Section 20.202 of the Ascension Parish Subdivision Regulations regarding electronic submissions. Now, therefore, it be ordained that Section 20.202 of the Ascension Parish Subdivision Regulations is amended to read as follows. 10 full-scale prints, 1 17-inch by 17-inch reduced print of the preliminary plat, 1 11-inch by 17-inch reduced print of the preliminary plat submitted in electronic form, .pdf file, or other acceptable format as approved by the Parish Ascension Technology Department, and specified supplementary material shall be submitted to the Secretary for the Planning and Zoning Commission at least 21 days prior to the regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The Engineer Review Agency and the Department of Public Works shall review the preliminary plat, that's a mouthful, within 10 days. Review and inspection fees established by the Planning and Zoning Commission shall be submitted with the preliminary plat.
Do I hear a motion to open a public hearing?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Shakespeare. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing? Mr. Quintma.
After reading, and I'm going to talk about them in globals rather because they all affect the same thing. It's electronic submission of plats. And the only concern I had as a surveyor is we're under a licensing board to tell us what we can and can't do. And since I wasn't aware of what the ordinance said until just recently, I was concerned that that may be a problem. And in talking to Randy this morning, I found out what he's trying to accomplish. And really, I have no opposition to it. I don't think any of us will. We're just concerned with the mechanics of it. You know, I can't do something that's in violation of my license. So in discussing that with him earlier, I think we can all get together. And with the rest of the surveyors, I'm going to bring it up at our next surveyors meeting and show them what we're talking about. That was my concern, and I think it was basically satisfied today. I don't have a problem. I was concerned with what cost it is to the citizens, the taxpayers that hire us. What cost would it be? What we got to add onto their bill to do this? But it looks like it'd be very minimal. The only thing you have to be concerned about as councilman is once you send it to the planning commission, then you're not in the game anymore. In other words, they'll make the rule, not you. And that would be a concern you may want to consider. But as far as a surveyor, it looks like we're not opposed to it. Matter of fact, we may support it. But there are always some concerns in just reading the ordinance as they're written now. But I think most of that can be worked out.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. Number 26, the ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, close the public hearing. Second by Mr. Byringer. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Move the ordinance. Again.
Motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Tyler Lambert. Is there any question on the ordinance? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 27, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation section 20.203 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
That's section 20.203, subsections A and D of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation is amended to read as follows. Electronic submissions 20.203. The subdivider must submit in electronic format a copy of the list indicating the names of the adjacent property owners, addresses of the lot and square numbers as shown in the parish assessor's records to the parish planner and engineer review agency. Any changes made by the owner subdivider subsequent to the approval of the preliminary plat shall be submitted in electronic format and reviewed by the Planning Commission and its staff. If the change suggested by the owner subdivider is determined by the Planning Commission chairman and his staff to be of substantial nature, then approval can only be granted by the Planning Commission, and then only after a public hearing is held for that purpose. If the Planning Commission chairman and his staff determine that the suggested change is not substantial in nature, then approval will be granted immediately.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Byringer, open public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion closed.
Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. Byringer to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. 28, the ordinance itself.
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Pick'em. Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. McConnell. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 29, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation section 20.701 subsections 1B and subsections 2B and C regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
Be it ordained that section 20.701 subsection 1B and subsections 2B and C of the Ascension Parish regulation is amended to read as follows. Final subdivision plat submitted in electronic format and hard copy. Section 1A shall remain as present. Preliminary plat submitted in electronic format and hard copy. Construction drawings submitted in electronic format. Section 2A and 2D to remain as present.
Motion here. Open the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. McConnell. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing? Motion by Mr. McConnell to close the public hearing, second by
Me.
Mr. Byringer. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 30, the ordinance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any opposition? No opposition, motion passes. Number 31, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation section 20.204 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babbitt.
Section 20.204, the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation is amended to read as follows. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall receive in hard copy and electronic format the preliminary plat, supplemental material, comments from the planning staff, the engineering review agency, and the Department of Public Works for review prior to its regular meetings. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall, at its regular meetings, discuss the plat as to the conformity with the subdivision regulations. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall express its approval or disapproval and the reasons therefore.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, close public hearing, second by Mr. Valentine. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 32, the ordinance itself. Motion by Mr. Shea Snyder, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 33, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, subsections 20.206 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babbitt.
Be it ordained that Section 20.206 of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation is amended to read as follows. If the subdivider does not submit the final plat and construction plans within 6 months, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall have the right to rescind approval of the preliminary plat. The engineer review agency shall be responsible for notifying the Planning Commission of of any subdividers that fail to submit construction plans within 6 months' duration. Notification shall be in the form of status update report presented at the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. If no construction has begun within 24 months following the acceptance of the preliminary plat of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the owner, subdivider, and/or developer shall resubmit all plans and construction plans to the Planning Commission for review. If changes in the construction plans are warranted, then the construction plans shall undergo review and the following approval by the Planning Commission. The developer may commence construction. If no construction activity takes place within 24 months following the approval of the preliminary plat, no construction activity may be undertaken and no lots or parcels of land may be sold, transferred, or conveyed prior to approval of the Planning Commission, the preliminary plat being automatically rescinded. The engineering review agency shall be responsible for notifying the Planning Commission of the subdividers that fail to begin construction within 24 months of duration. Notification shall be in the form of a status update report presented at the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. If no permits are requested or are utilized prior to the expiration date for the respective filing in a subdivision within 5 years following the approval of the final plat of said filing, then said filing and development thereon shall conform to the requirements as set forth in Ascension Parish subdivision regulations and the Ascension Parish Development Code applicable at the time of the permits for development or building within the filing sought. The planning official shall be responsible for notifying the Planning Commission of any subdividers that fail to request permits within a 5-year duration. Notification shall be in the form of a status update report presented at the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Valentine, to open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Byringer, to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 34, the ordinance itself.
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 35, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, sections 40.204 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
Be it ordained that Section 40.202 of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation is amended to read as follows. The preliminary plat shall be legibly drawn on paper with minimum dimensions of 11 inch by 17 inch.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, to open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 36, the ordinance.
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 37, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, section 50.203 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
To amend Section 50.203 of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations is amended to read as follows. Electronic submissions, 50.203. Submit one complete set of as-built drawings on electronic media as approved by the Technology Department and one complete blue line set of full-line 24-inch by 36-inch prints. This shall include construction drawings showing roadway sections, plan and profile sheets, all drainage structures, ditches, sanitary sewer, layout, and wire record. Above shall be submitted to the Ascension Parish Department of Public Works Engineering Section.
Motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. McConnell, open public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 38, the ordinance itself.
I move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Byringer. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 39, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, section 40.301 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
To amend, be it ordained that Section 40.301 of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulation is amended to read as follows. Electronic submissions, 40.301. The final plat shall be legibly drawn and shall be a minimum dimension of 11 inch by 17 inch, which can be legibly reproduced. Where necessary, plat may be on several sheets accompanied by an index sheet showing the entire subdivision. For large subdivisions, the final plat may be submitted for approval progressively in contiguous sections satisfactory to the Planning Commission. The final plat shall show the following.
Motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byringer to open public hearing, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 40, the ordinance.
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 41, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, sections 40.202 regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
This is a short one. Be it ordained that Section 40.201 of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations is amended to read as follows. Electronic submissions 40.202. The preliminary plat shall be legibly drawn on paper with a minimum dimension of 11 inch by 17 inch.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Byrigger, to open public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 42, the
So
ordinance
moved,
itself.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Byrigger. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 43, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, sections 20.502, subsections of A and B regarding electronic submission. Mr. Babin.
It comes to an end. Be it ordained that Section 20.502, subsection A of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations is amended to read as follows. Electronic submissions 20.502, Planning Commission Secretary 10 full-scale prints, 1 11-inch by 17-inch reduced print of the signed final plat, and 1 11-inch by 17-inch reduced print in electronic format as acceptable and approved by the Parish of Ascension Technology Department.
Motion to open public.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Byrigger, to open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 40.
Move the ordinance, Mr.
The
Chairman.
ordinance itself. Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. Byrigger. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 45, executive session matter. Executive session for a personnel matter. Do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Valentine.
I had put this on the agenda at the finance meeting, and it requested Roy Katz, Richard Brown, Don Heisler, and Parish President. Seeing that Mr. Heisler is not here, Mr. Katz, I understand, is on vacation, and Richard Brown is not here, I will put this on the next agenda. If there is some reason why they're not here, Mr. President? Is Mr. Heisler?
Mr. Heisler's sick. Mr. Katz is on vacation. I'm not sure about Mr. Brown, but we were advised, based on what we were told the nature of this was by District Attorney's Office, that we should not participate.
Well, District Attorney wasn't told exactly until late this evening what it pertains to, but you might want to talk to him again.
I'm just going by the letter we got from
I
one
wonder
of the assistant DAs.
why Mr. Heisler's not here. Is there an emergency?
He was sick.
Okay, sick. He sent me an email late this afternoon and didn't indicate that he wasn't going to be at the meeting. And by chart, I think he's required to be at our official meetings. We've already had this discussion.
You may be right, Mr.
Well,
Brown.
I mean, I did request him in last meeting, so that's why I'm saying. I'm just curious.
I just remind you he works for me and not for you.
I understand that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
But that's why I requested him. So I request those 4 people at the next meeting, and Mr. Babin will also be in executive session.
We'll consider your request.
Okay, I'll go ahead and say it then. We're going to have, according to the document, since you forced me to do it, Mr. Parish President,
Excuse me, Mr.
exceptions
Chairman.
of open meetings, RS 42-6, number 4 says investigative proceeding regarding allegations of misconduct, and that's what we're going into executive session for. I tried to keep it out, but you want to contend? Well, that's the reason, Mr. Babin. You can go ahead and look at that and make sure that I'm right in that assumption.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
We were just going on the advice of one of the assistant district attorneys now on this matter, so we'd be happy to get with legal counsel and members of the parish executive committee or whoever on this matter.
All right. Ms. Fontenot.
I just hope that Mr. Heisel hadn't got suddenly sick, because I saw him at the Republican luncheon today. Looked fine.
All right, that's good. Mr. McConnell.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Byringer. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Good night, everybody.